This challenge has sent multiple people to the hospital, and you're about to see why.
Oh, baby. Oh, I can smell the evil coming off of them.
I think it's steam rolling off of them. Could be toxic fumes. These wings are rated at 750,000 Scoville units, making them the hottest chicken wings in Michigan, and quite possibly the worst eating idea I've had since the last time I agreed to do a spicy food challenge. And trust me, Chew Crew, I keep having these ideas. Today, I'm at Sporty's Wing Shack in Pinconning, Michigan, taking on the infamous Rob Little Challenge. 11 of their signature chicken wings coated in a most diabolical sauce. And when I say diabolical, I mean these things are basically chicken wings that went to the dark side. The sauce gets most of its heat from the famous ghost pepper chili, along with several other proprietary ingredients that Sporty's keeps under wraps. Their sauce lineup ranks heat on a 1 to 9 pain scale, ranging from relatively innocent heat levels to intense. Then they dial it up with what they call 3 levels of stupidity, with pain levels of 10, 14, and then the challenge itself, which is ranked a 21. I have 1 hour to eat this entire basket, and at roughly a pound of chicken wings, that doesn't sound too terrible, until you realize these wings are essentially trying to end my bloodline. And before we get started, I had a couple of decisions to make. For starters, I was given the choice between ranch and blue cheese for dipping sauce, and obviously I had to go with ranch. Why? To support my middle child, Amelia, who at any given time has a BRC, or blood ranch content, of at least 0.08. That's a totally legitimate medical measurement, I think. Honestly though, I had a feeling that either one of these dipping sauces was going to provide about as much relief as spitting on a campfire. And to distract myself and hopefully give myself a little bit of motivation, I decided to play a little mental game. I wanted to see how many wings I could eat before I finally felt compelled to reach for that ranch. So before we get too far into the challenge, pause the video and make your prediction below. How many wings do you think I made it through before I surrendered to the ranch? And more importantly, do you think ranch was the best choice, or would you have gone with blue cheese? I was also given 2 sticks of celery. Now, I'm not exactly sure how much these were going to help with the heat, but I figured they could at least help floss any remaining ghost pepper out from between my teeth. I was expecting the first bite to be absolutely catastrophic. I was expecting a searing wave of pain to wash over me immediately. But strangely enough, the first thing I noticed was actually the flavor. The wings were cooked extremely well, the skin was nice and crispy from being deep fried, the meat was tender, and for a brief, beautiful moment, I could actually taste the chicken. And then the heat hit me like a sledgehammer. And it wasn't just the taste. The smell coming off these things was intense. I could actually smell the wings coming out of the kitchen from like 30 feet away. You get that concentrated ghost pepper aroma that seems to travel directly from your nose into your brain and say, "You chose poorly." And I knew immediately that I was going to have to work quickly, because this wasn't the kind of heat that just shows up, shakes your hand, and leaves. This heat was moving in. There was some pretty good incentive to finish. If you win, you get the meal for free, and your picture goes up on the wall of flame. If you lose, you pay about $26 for the meal and get a special loser t-shirt. Naturally, I asked the waitress what the t-shirt said, and she told me I'd just have to find out for myself. So apparently there was a little mystery prize waiting for me at the end of this challenge. And then there's the rules. Contestants are allowed napkins, and we're allowed drinks as long as they're not dairy-based, which is actually considerably more generous than my previous spicy food challenge at 810 Munchies, where I took on their Devil Dog Challenge. That one didn't allow drinks or napkins during the challenge, or even during the 5-minute afterburn period. So I was pretty happy to see that Sporty's was willing to let me have something to drink and be able to wipe the searing pain off my face. Whether those things actually helped me during the challenge, however, we'll get to that. And then there was one final mystery. I was given this little container filled with blue liquid. At first, I thought I maybe was handed a shot of UV blue, which in retrospect would have been a pretty questionable decision to pack on top of eating 750,000 Scoville wings, but the waitress explained what it actually was. More on that later. Wing after wing, things started to get worse quick, and by about wing number 5 or 6, the effects of the spice were kicking in. Now, at the beginning of the video, I told you this challenge has sent multiple people to the hospital. After I signed the release waiver, the waitress told me that a couple folks have ended up going to the hospital while attempting the challenge, which included ambulances being called, the whole 9 yards. Now, obviously, spicy food challenges aren't without risk, and I'm not saying eating a spicy chicken wing automatically sends you to the ER, but extremely spicy food can produce some pretty intense reactions. Capsaicin, the compound responsible for the heat in peppers, activates pain and heat receptors in your body. That's why your brain interprets it as burning, even though you're not actually setting your mouth on fire. And at very high concentrations, that sensation's pretty darn extreme. So as always, don't copy what I'm doing just because it looks like I'm having a fantastic time, because I'm not. Actually, speaking of fantastic times, if this video is making you laugh, cry, or just generally pity a grown man who voluntarily does this for entertainment, consider becoming an official member of the Chew Crew. Members like Legendary 834 get perks, including early access to my videos, discounts on Chew Crew merchandise, and other goodies. Basically, you get to support my questionable life choices from a safe distance, which is probably the smarter strategy. By about wing number 9, I was really starting to hurt. My nose is running, my eyes are watering, my vision's getting blurry, and I had that instinctive urge to rub my eyes. Fortunately, I stopped myself, because getting ghost pepper sauce on my fingers is one thing. Getting the sauce in my eyeballs would have been an entirely different video. My face was basically producing every available bodily fluid, including tears of regret, and somehow I still had a few more wings to eat. And whilst you enjoy my continued suffering, here are a few interesting tidbits about our star ingredient. Ghost peppers became famous for their extreme heat, but they aren't just little capsules of pain. Like other peppers, they're part of the genus capsicum, and their heat comes primarily from capsaicinoids. And here's one of my favorite facts about capsaicin. Water doesn't actually neutralize it. Capsaicin's fat-soluble, which is one reason dairy products can be much more effective at providing relief than just water. Dairy wasn't allowed, of course, during the challenge, and every time I took a drink of water, it wasn't really washing the capsaicin away. It was really giving it a nice little tour of my mouth. And while we're talking about Michigan, we're in Pinconning, and Pinconning has another claim to fame that's considerably more wholesome than 750,000 Scoville chicken wings. Cheese. Pinconning is famous for their cheese, a Michigan original that dates back to the early 20th century. It's a semi-soft cheese with a somewhat nutty, buttery flavor, and the city's been closely associated with it for decades. So apparently Pinconning has decided to give the world two things: cheese and suffering. Personally, I prefer the cheese, although I suppose a ghost pepper cheese would probably be a good way to get both products into the same emergency room. And while chicken wings have only been around since the 1960s, they've gone from being coated in buffalo sauce to being slathered in enough capsaicin to make grown men cry and call it entertainment. America really is a beautiful place. At this point, the sauce is coating the inside of my mouth and it's spreading across my face. I'm starting to look like the Joker. My lips are burning, my mouth's just ablaze. I'd been sipping water trying to clear the sauce out of my mouth, but every time I took another swig, I could feel the capsaicin spreading into another little nook and cranny and just dripping down my esophagus, heading straight for my poor stomach, which has been underpaid and overworked for decades. I'm pretty sure at this point my stomach was preparing to file a workers' compensation claim. Too many. Just one. They're pretty bad. He's gonna make it. I hope. I'm crying. There you go. Yeah. More? He's on the grand finale. Yeah, buddy. By the time I reached the last wing, I was having to dig deep. And then, because apparently the universe wanted to add one more challenge to this challenge, my primary recording device ran out of storage. The video stopped, which has literally never happened to me before. And this is why you always want a backup recording device running, because in the world of competitive eating and YouTube, if there isn't video footage, it didn't happen. Thankfully, I had a backup camera going, so we're still in business. But I was still fighting through this last wing, and eventually I succumbed to the siren song of the ranch. I dipped that wing in there and took a bite. And did it provide relief? Technically. Was it miraculous? Absolutely not. It was more like somebody turned the fire down from small nuclear incident to large forest fire. Remember that loser's t-shirt? The waitress told me I'd have to see what it said for myself. Well, it says in giant letters, "I got beat by a chicken," which is honestly one of the greatest loser t-shirts I've ever heard of. Fortunately, I don't have to wear it because I successfully devoured all 11 wings. So, back to that mysterious blue container. Remember this? I initially thought it was maybe UV blue, maybe a celebratory shot, maybe Sporty's was about to send me into another dimension. No, it was Dawn dish soap. The waitress gave it to me so that I could clean my hands as thoroughly as possible after the challenge, and that was incredibly thoughtful. It took me like 5 or 6 hand washes before I felt like I'd really gotten every last bit off. If you like pain, or more accurately, if you enjoy watching other people experience pain from a safe and comfortable location, I've just created a brand new spicy food challenge playlist called No Pain, No Brain. And trust me, there's going to be plenty more suffering where this came from. So if you enjoyed watching me voluntarily make terrible decisions with chicken wings, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to Charlie and the Chew Crew, and come along for the next food challenge. Huge thanks to Sporty's Wing Shack for a terribly good time. Until I see you in the next challenge, stay hungry.